Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, the laughing centrist, and we have here Andrew, psychotic killer mindgasms, and we're going to talk about the Joker today.
Yes.
This came out during the pandemic. Was it in 2020 that this came out?
Didn't it come out before the pandemic, actually? I think it
No, I
came
think this
out.
was in
Yeah, it came
that
out
was
in
a pandemic.
2019.
Oh, did it? I could have swore it was a pandemic movie.
Um,
You found it?
I don't. Yeah, it says 2019. I don't
Oh, it
see.
must have been right before then.
I don't see what month it is. October 6th? Yeah, that
Oh,
must
it's
have been
right
that must have been a
before it.
little bit before the pandemic. Yeah.
Okay, so it came out right before the pandemic. I think I got confused because the Oscar award, the Academy Award was during the pandemic in which he
Oh,
won it.
okay.
So I was like,
Okay.
oh, because that's what I was paying attention to. I was like, oh, the Oscar was during the pandemic. So I like, oh, okay. So it was before the pandemic. He won the Oscar after the pandemic.
Okay.
I also remember hearing rumors about this movie of it like inciting people to become like mass shooters. I think I've heard people talking about that. Do you remember any media coverage talking about how this was encouraging people uh, to do like some type of violence or anything like that?
I think I saw a few people speculating about that. I mean, I could see people making that argument because basically the Joker, like we see even more closer to the end of the movie, how literally delusionally crazy he is, and he basically just develops this maniacal mindset where fuck the world and I should kill everyone because tragedy is actually comedy. And I could see people doing that, but then that just gets into the whole debate about how much should we blame art for people's actions. And I don't think that and I don't think that that we should ever blame art for people's actions unless it's literally propaganda. That's just straight
Hmm.
up propaganda, like Nazis making documentaries saying that Jews are like these subhuman things or something like that.
Yeah, because I remember hearing things like that, saying that this movie was just a justification for wacky people to commit heinous crimes. Um, After watching the movie, it's not, it's weird because we have heroes and anti-heroes, and this guy is like an anti
Yeah.
borderline hero, but not really.
Hmm.
Because it's such a interesting and gritty take for a villain, and even by
Yeah.
the end, like one of the couple things he does are pretty horrific,
Yeah.
but they're
And
not
I
like random. They're
and I
not.
forgot and I forgot well, I was telling you when I was rewatching it, I forgot after the first time that I watched it how how close to the start of the movie Joker kills people and how many people he kills. He's killed half a dozen people by the end of the movie. I forgot about that too. But yeah, you're right too. The first time he kills people, it's when those three guys are bullying him on the not just bullying him on this subway, but beating the fuck out of him. And
All
just
right.
like how earlier in the movie we see him being beat up by some kids, and one of the things that's so great about the character. He's presented in such a sympathetic character, which and obviously the performance of Joaquin Phoenix is amazing, which is why he deserved the award for that movie too. And it's the like I love this movie because it's so dark that it makes you sympathize with the bad guy because the bad guy is the protagonist. So the like I have that twisted, fucked up smile on my face at the end when he's laughing down the hallway with bloody footprints from murdering that woman who was talking to him.
All right. Yeah, another thing. It seems that this character itself has huge Oscar potential because we have Joaquin Phoenix and we also have the other Joker from the Nolan Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and his name escapes me right now for some reason.
Heath Ledger.
There you go, Heath Ledger. He also won an Oscar for playing this character as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
And
pretty
Jared
interesting.
Leto did not.
No, and I don't think he ever would.
Yeah. Like we were
um,
talking about when we talked about the Snyder Cut of Justice League, though, I thought that dark Joker in the DC Dark Universe that we saw in Batman's Dream, I thought that version of Jared Leto's Joker was a lot better than his ridiculously cheesy Joker in Suicide Squad.
yeah, but it's still quite not even on the level of Joaquin Phoenix
Yeah,
and the other one. It's just not even comparable
for sure.
because Jared Leto's Joker is never a driver in the movie. Like the
Yeah.
main character is basically Will Smith.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that kind of sucks up all the emotional gravitas of the movie. Like the other characters are just kind of side characters. Hold
Yeah.
on, somebody's knocking on the door over here.
And then okay, I'll just keep talking about Suicide Squad. Yeah, and then oh shit, I've got to look that up right now. What's the Joker's girlfriend's name in Suicide Squad? I forget what her name is because she got her own movie
Yeah.
I'm really
after
sorry
that,
to
right?
bother you. You said
Birds of
19
Prey.
129.
129
Uh-huh. 75.
75
Harley Quinn.
Worldgate Drive.
Ward WORLD.
Uh-huh.
Mute
Okay.
yourself, Dusty.
Any zip code?
That's it.
Yeah, there
No
was
zip
that.
code?
0170.
Say again? It's a Virginia, right?
Herndon. Herndon is a city.
And then
Yes.
I get a flood. I call the insurance company. They're gonna send it to fix it.
Okay. Annoying. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I stopped talking because I would have been talking over your voices there.
I forgot to mute myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Harley Quinn is
Yeah.
the Joker's
She got her own
girlfriend.
movie. I have you seen that movie Birds of Prey? Because I thought it looked interesting, so I watched some of it, but I bailed on it because it was too cheesy for me.
I didn't even know that she had her own movie.
Oh, okay.
No, I hadn't seen it.
Did you see that newer Suicide Squad movie? Kind of like how the new Batman movie is called The Batman instead of Batman whatever, the Suicide Squad, because it's such a recent remake of Suicide Squad. It's called The Suicide Squad.
Are you serious? They're already rebooting it already?
Yeah. No, it's
The
already
movie ain't that
out.
old, man.
Yeah, it's there. It's already out. I watched it. I thought it was a little bit better than the original one. Like Idris Elba
Jeez.
basically plays a slightly different version of Will Smith's character, and he's not a sniper. And then there
So it's the
a bunch
same
of other.
characters, just different actors?
Well, no, it's not the same character. It's not exactly the same characters. It's similar characters, but there are some totally different characters too. I still didn't think it was an amazing movie though. But then there's also the John Cena who plays the Peacemaker character in that movie. There's also already one season of the show based on his character called the Peacemaker, which I haven't watched yet.
I have no clue about any of these shows. Like, I guess maybe they've just been marketed horribly. I just haven't seen anything at all regarding that movie, the shows, this Harlequin spin-off movie. Yeah, I haven't seen any of it or
I
even
didn't
heard
see
about any of it.
I didn't see any marketing for the Peacemaker, but I saw a bunch of ads for the Suicide Squad when it was about to come out.
Yeah, I guess I just wasn't in the loop there. Because I've seen ads for like the Marvel stuff, but I had not seen any of these DC ads. I think DC is just, I guess they just have a problem. You know, even the Batman, I had no fucking idea about this movie. Like, I didn't know this movie even existed until it came out.
Oh, really? Yeah, I saw a couple ads for it. I wasn't too excited about it, but I watched it because it happens to be on the Crave TV app that I have that sometimes gets newer movies on them that are only on HBO Plus or whatever the streaming service is called, because it gets stuff that's on regular HBO.
Yeah, I had no clue, man. Um, I guess that's just how bad the marketing is. I don't know if it's bad marketing or what. Like I said, I didn't know about the Halo TV show until it was out.
I only knew about that because I had heard Daniel Green saying that it was being worked on a bunch of times.
Yeah, I guess I must have missed those Daniel Green episodes. But yeah, I was like,
I think they
oh,
were
it's a
in his
Halo TV
fantasy
show.
news segments. Yeah. Oh yeah, I watched I just watched episode 5 earlier today, by the way. I still am not very pleased with the show so far. Episode 1 is my favorite episode by far, and I did like how there was actually Brief Covenant episode or battle in episode 5, but I really am not a fan of most of the characters. They're not that interesting to me.
I just don't like Quan.
Yeah,
Quan
she's
just
kind
kind
of
of
boring.
infuriates me.
Yeah.
Quan's supposed to be, I guess, a good guy, but Quan just infuriates me. I just don't think it adds anything to the story whatsoever. But
Okay.
I don't know. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna see how they're gonna end the season.
I'll
At least.
probably stick with it until the end of the season, but if I don't really like it, if I'm still not much of a fan of it by the end of season 1, I'll probably bail on it.
Yeah, I'll probably still continue to see what happens. 'Cause I want to see them actually get the Halo, hopefully if they ever do. I know there's this one reviewer that I follow that reviews a lot of different movies and shows, and CBS actually did copyright claims on his critiques because he does a per episode critique, and
Okay.
they did copyright claims on him for episode 4 and episode 2 because he gave them very low ratings for those episodes.
Okay.
So they were trying to retaliate against him for bad reviews.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. So this movie, The Joker, I remember being, some more Batman shit. I was like, I don't know, I'm kind of like done for the most part with reboots and things like that. I just want new stories. And I thought this Joker, the Joker thing was going to be kind of more of the same. Like, oh, it's
Yeah, me
just going to
too.
be some type of reboot origin story for Joker. And it is. I'm not saying that it isn't, but it's not an origin story that I've seen before. It seems um, pretty original. However, there have been some critiques about this movie saying that it has a very similar plot to um, a couple
Taxi
different.
Driver?
Yeah, they mentioned Taxi Driver and another
Yeah.
one called The King of Comedy, which is another um, Scorsese movie with
Oh, okay.
Robert De Niro in it.
I haven't seen The King of Comedy, but I've seen Taxi Driver, and yeah, I mean, I noticed that parallel in this before I heard people mentioning it, and after I heard people mention it, I thought that made even more sense because there are really a lot of really interesting. Have you seen Taxi Driver? That's one of my favorite Martin Scorsese movies.
I am woefully uncultured, my friend. I have not seen
Okay.
it yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely worth watching. It's basically it's similar, except Robert De Niro's character in Taxi Driver, he's basically just an emotionally broken person with PTSD from having been in the Vietnam War, and he
Mhm.
slowly grows more and more crazy with his obsession with this one woman, and because he's fucking weird, she doesn't like him, and he directs his anger at her towards this politician. So I'll try to avoid spoilers, but he plans to assassinate this politician, and then changes his mind, and there's this big epic shootout, and he's like this radical, violent, fucked up guy by the end of the movie. So it's a lot of similar basic themes in Joker. He's this crazy loner guy, although Joker himself is a much more noticeably crazy, and we know in the movie that he literally is clinically crazy. And I think this movie actually has a more interesting plot in the way they flip the role of Thomas Wayne as being this heroic figure on its head, and making him the villain and making his mother crazy. But it's similar too in that like Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver, Joker goes and does this violent plan that he has at the end of it, because he's decided that he's not crazy, society is crazy, and we should destroy people because violence is actually funny, which is interesting too, because it that's one of the aspects of the movie that makes you sympathetic towards his character, because he has a point that society is fucked up, and some of the things that he's pointing out are really bad. Like, people are really bad to really mean to each other, and the way that they tarnish the vision that we have of Thomas Wayne from the Dark Knight movies, for example, basically is kind of it seems like a criticism of rich people, and sort of a comment on economic inequality and that sort of thing. So you could see the sort of like sentiment in that too, and you can see how with this sort of thing, and I wonder if this happened to an extent with Taxi Driver at the time. I wonder if people were inspired by Taxi Driver to go and do some political violence or some shit like that too. And I could see how incels or something like, or someone like that could get inspired by this movie too, even though, like I said, I don't blame that on the movie, because the Joker is so awkward with women that he has no hope. So you could see incels blaming that on women specifically, instead of society at large.
Right. I think one thing to note too is just kind of like taking a look at some of the fundamentals when they built this character specifically for this movie. So we have a character who has a condition, and that condition is that he just kind of uncontrollably laughs at inappropriate times, which we do find out is possibly a result of head trauma that he received when he was in an abusive household. Yeah, the Joker's story is so fucked up. Just like, I don't want to go chronologically, because we could just go ahead and talk about his origin. So his mother is crazy.
Yeah.
And Joker didn't know that. What is the Joker's name? I keep forgetting.
It's Arthur.
Arthur, that's right.
I forget the last name, but I'm gonna look that up right now. I forget. Is it Fleck? Oh yeah, I think it's Fleck.
Arthur Fleck. Yeah.
Joker's
So
name.
Arthur, his mom is crazy. He didn't know this. But during the beginning of the movie, she's waiting to receive some type of letters from. Did she mention that it was Joker's father? Or
No, she didn't. She didn't mention that at first. For a long time, he was confused as to why he thinks, or why she thinks that Thomas Wayne owes them so much, and it wasn't until later on that she revealed that, I think.
oh, so what happened is Arthur basically took a piece of her mail and looked at it himself, and it was basically like a reprimand saying, "Hey, crazy lady, stop contacting us," or something, or was it a
Right.
letter that she wrote that you saw?
Oh, the Joker's name was apparently originally Jack Napier, his real
Well, I
name.
know it's Jack Napier and other versions of Batman, because I know that's his name in the first Batman movie.
I wonder if there are different, like the Joker's real name is different depending on what specific Batman series it's based on. Is that is this the is this Joker movie supposed to be based on the origins in that Dark series, The Killing Joke?
I think the Killing Joke is an influence on this particular movie.
Okay.
That's what I've heard. I haven't actually read it. It's probably something
That
I
would make
should
sense.
read at some point in time, since I know it's kind of like um, an influential work in kind of like the Black Batman canon.
Okay. Apparently, uh, apparently, for the purpose of Batman, the Joker is Napier. For Joker, the character was once Arthur Fleck. Both are correct for their respective stories, yet neither name is more valid than the next. Maybe there are different origin stories for the Joker then. That's interesting.
Yeah, because everything I'm seeing related to Arthur Fleck is just talking about the Joker movie.
Right.
Um, but anyway, so he had a pretty crazy upbringing that he really didn't know about towards the end of the movie, um, which actually motivated him to do a few things. Because after he found his mother's letter, he didn't know his mother was crazy, and he
Mm-hmm.
genuinely thought that he was like the bastard son of Thomas Wayne. Um, so he did show up at the Wayne residence and met Bruce. I think he performed a little magic trick for him, and then some security guards showed up. Some people say that was Alfred. I don't remember if his name was mentioned.
I think it is. I think it is supposed to be Alfred when he comes to see him at the gate.
Okay. Because I remember Alfred is supposed to be like a former like military guy.
Oh, I forgot that.
Um, so yeah, he meets the son. He like manhandles Alfred a little bit through the gate, and then he once again shows up. I think it's at a movie or an opera or something like that, and he corners Thomas Wayne in the bathroom, and um, he confronts him about his mother. Thomas Wayne insists that his mom was insane and to go look up her medical records. I think the encounter ends with Thomas punching the Joker in the face or something like that,
Right.
if I am not mistaken.
I think he slaps him actually.
Was it a slap?
I remember noticing that. He slapped him. I thought, did he punch him? No, he had an open hand.
Okay, I thought he punched him.
Yeah. Oh, he slapped
Okay.
him. I think the whole Oscar thing with Will Smith and Chris Rock has made me more sensitive to people being slapped.
So he actually goes and investigates this and finds out, yeah, my mom was crazy, and all this whole time she had me believing like all this other stuff. And then when he finds the medical reports, he also sees that she's been crazy for a long time, and that he was adopted, and he's not even like her own offspring. However, she was in some very abusive relationships, and he got head trauma and abused, and
Yeah.
his condition that he currently has is likely due to that. And
Yeah, they
this
get that
probably
gets
has
really, really dark, like you were saying. The he gets this that the way they do that scene is really interesting. It's as if someone's telling him at the same time that he's having memories of what that are unlocked by him reading this document after he steals it from that guy about how he was literally chained to a radiator and would be kept there for days without food and savagely her mother's boyfriend would savagely beat him, both him and her. So
right.
yeah, that's like another really strong dark aspect of his past that makes you empathize with him more in spite of how crazy and violent he gets.
So it's kind of implied that these are repressed memories. So these are not things he's remembered. They just
Hmm.
kind of like block these things off. Otherwise, he's an adult. He probably would have thought about those more a bit.
Hmm.
But that's basically what makes him the way he is. His social awkwardness, I assume, is associated with this. You
Hmm.
know, so throughout his life, it looks like he's a clown. Like that's his job, at least
Hmm.
from what's initiated. Sign twirler. I don't know if there were sign twirlers in the 80s, because it looks like this movie takes place during the 80s, because all the cars are like 80s cars. So it's basically the 80s in Gotham. So he's a clown. He's trolling this sign. Some kids like steal a sign. He gets beat up. Uh, so his boss is a real asshole. The boss doesn't care that he got beat up and thinks he made up the story, because the kids like destroyed his sign. So the boss is like, "You better get that sign back, else we're gonna dock your pay." So so he has like one of his coworkers is like, "Hey, Andrew has gone away. Oh no, let me see where it's gonna go with the Andrew." Let's see. Well, I guess he'll come back at some point in time. But anyway, I'll just go ahead and explain some other things that are going on in this movie. So he has a coworker that says, "Hey, you need to protect yourself," gives him a gun, and this doesn't turn out well for Arthur. He has a gig at a children's hospital, and Arthur is actually a pretty good clown. It's actually, yeah, he's a socially awkward guy that uh, does not really interact well on a social level, but he actually does a pretty good job at being a clown. However, during this encounter at a children's hospital, a pistol falls out of his trousers in front of everybody. Um, and this does not go unnoticed. It reaches back to his boss, and that is the last straw. And the boss man fires him. So he became you know, unemployed at that point. And he does seem to be the main breadwinner for his family. So one of the other things he does is he wants to be a stand-up comedian, and this he does pursue this career. And while he's down on his luck as well, he meets a neighbor in his apartment who's this young, attractive woman who likely wouldn't give Arthur the time of day. So, okay, I think Andrew's coming back now. But yeah, let me get Andrew back here. Well, yes, Arthur Fleck. I'm talking about Arthur Fleck here. Yeah, I can't find any other references where he's described as any other version of Joker besides this movie. Let me see. Oh, okay. So, why did we have compunctions about this movie promoting mass murder, or at least the justification of mass murder? I think the character of Joker is somebody who was formed by society. I don't think the Joker is inherently evil. Everybody that he's killed in this movie, it seems to have been because of a revenge motive. Yeah, murder's bad. And I don't know if it's complete. Like a lot of the stuff he doesn't do is justified. I know he did kill two people in self-defense at least. Um, and the third person in that group was not in self-defense. Like Andrew, you remember the first scene where Joker starts killing those three guys.
Yeah.
Would you say that some of the like he shot two of them like in self-defense, and then he hunts down the third guy
Mm-hmm.
and kind of just executes them?
Yeah.
Would you say that at least one of those, at least two of those killings were justified as self-defense?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if killing them was justified. I'd say that like beating them up would have been justified, but I don't know if killing them seems like an overreaction. But I see your point that chasing after the third guy is worse. And I mean, if you have that can be a problem with having a gun too. If you're getting beat up and you're trying to protect yourself and you don't have martial arts skills or anything else, like what are you going to do? So that does make it seem more justified. But then also would that have happened if he were armed, and would they have killed him if he hadn't stopped them? I don't know. There are a lot of interesting questions that you could ask about that.
Yeah, I think this little incident, and there's another movie that I could think of that aware of the movie called Death Wish? Have you seen this movie?
I don't think I've seen the original. I've just seen the remake with Bruce Willis.
Oh, I didn't know they made a Bruce Willis remake. Well, in the original Death Wish, a similar incident occurs on a subway where the guy is getting robbed, or at least attempted robbery, and the anti-hero shoots him. I think I don't know if which came first. Let me see when Death Wish came out, because there's kind of a. Go ahead.
The original was with Steve McQueen, right?
No, the original was with what's his
Oh,
name?
Charles Bronson?
Yeah, Charles Bronson.
Right.
So that one was in the 70s. This is like when New York was really a fucking crime-ridden place. New York is not the same as it was in the 70s or 80s.
Right.
Yeah, not quite. It's still there's still crime there, but not quite the level that there was in the 70s and 80s. Well, Death Wish it came out in 1974. Charles Bronson. But there is a famous case of a New York subway shooting in 1984. And the name of the guy who did it was named Bernard Getz or Bernie Getz. And
Oh,
he shot like four people on a subway who attempted to, or he said attempted to rob him. So he went to court and everything, and he actually originally got off,
oh
but
wow.
yeah, there were some later things that happened where he was re-indicted later because the gun that he was carrying wasn't licensed, so they got him on that. But
Okay.
he did, I think he did have to pay like a huge fine. Um, and the the verdict was on like a criminal possession of a weapon, not for shooting people.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So if
so
you
he
get
got a
if
lesser
you
count.
kill someone in self-defense, it doesn't count as murder?
No, no, they
Okay.
would drop that charge. But there was a
Okay.
civil trial, and he was ordered to pay $43 million.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But he did go to jail. It was just for the criminal possession. So he went to jail for a year and a half, a little over a year and a half.
Okay.
So yeah, it really reminded me of this case. And if you look at pictures of subways back in 1984, man, they look like the worst, like truck stop bathrooms, just like graffiti everywhere. Um, it looks really uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Okay. I was
Not something.
gonna ask you too that because I didn't know for sure which era this took place in, what decade it was in, because I assumed that it was maybe the 70s or 80s because it was before cell phones and just because of the way things look like you were talking about with the subways and whatnot.
Yeah, the subways and Joker looked a bit cleaner than what I would expect. But I think they say it takes place in 1981
Okay.
because there are movies featured on some marquees on some um, like movie theaters, and they're like movies that came out in the 80s.
Okay.
Um, so he begins. It's almost like that first. Like the Joker feels powerless throughout the first half of the movie until he takes that first step in defending himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then that actually builds kind of some, I guess, some self-esteem because after this is when he tries to be a stand-up comedian.
Mm-hmm.
And is this
That's the
also?
that's the start of when we this is another cool part too. That's the start of what we don't find out until later is his hallucinations of an entire developing relationship with that woman in his building who talked to him once, because
Yeah, because
he imagines inviting her to come and see his stand-up comedy, and he imagines her being there and dating her and all kinds of other, and being with him in the when his mom is in the hospital and all that stuff, right?
yeah, because I know I don't know if this first meeting is a complete imaginary delusion, but she does mention like the crime that occurred and how she supported what happened.
Yeah, that how he sees the he sees the headline about the clown killer, and she says, "I think they deserve to die," or something to that effect.
Yeah, because he like in the background brooding in this movie is like this movement that seems to be about class and how
Yeah,
the rich people get away with everything. So these three people that he shot apparently were like these really high level like Wall Street brokers.
and you could see how people could interpret that as being fuel for populist political violence in the same ways as if it's addressing financial inequality, which is why that cult gets built up around Joker, right?
Right. So throughout the movie they pepper in some protests and things like that, and the Joker actually goes to a couple of these protests. But there seems
Right.
to be some type of tension in the city between the elites and like the regular populace. I think they talk about that through politics. I know, like Thomas Wayne is supposed to be running for some type of political position in Gotham City.
Isn't it Mayor?
Is it mayor? Yeah, I believe it was mayor.
I think it is. Another interesting aspect of the movie that I was just thinking about is, since we were mentioning Taxi Driver, it's interesting too that Robert De Niro is in this movie. I'd be
Right.
interested to see if there are special features on the DVD or something like that with them talking about the vision of the film, and if and whether he was thinking conscious about the allusions to Taxi Driver when it was happening, because he plays that talk show host uh who the Joker Arthur idolizes and sees as a father figure, and has hallucinations of going up on stage and having him hug him and telling him he's a good man, like the son he wishes he had, and that sort of thing. And then he gets pissed off when Robert De Niro's character makes fun of him on his show, and then he gets invited to the show, basically so they can make fun of him more, and then that's where he does his big violent stand, and then shoots Robert De Niro's character live on TV, and then he gets arrested by the cops. The mob turns over the car. He survives and has this like great divine moment, being praised as the cult leader, and then he goes to Arkham Asylum and then kills someone at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the Joker dance that he does throughout this movie?
Oh yeah, that's such a brilliant aspect of Joaquin Phoenix's performance, and it's so fucked up when he does that, especially when he does it after he kills someone, like after he stabs that guy who worked with him. Uh when he, I think I think that's the first time he dances after he kills someone. But yeah, that's so fucked up and weird. It really makes the character so much more interesting and effective. It's kind of like one of the other crazy things that he does, which is when he's painting his face before that guy he worked with and the little person or the midget guy whose life he spares, that he's painting his face, but then he also paints his tongue with the white face paint, like this other random little crazy thing that he does.
Hmm. Yeah, he does a lot of weird dancing in this movie. Very reminiscent of the guy doing like Tai Chi naked and
Die Hard 2.
Apocalypse Now. I guess Apocalypse Now, Die Hard 2,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. Both of them, yeah.
Naked, naked Tai Chi. It's just like, okay, this is kind of like his version of naked Tai Chi.
Yeah.
Just like this crazy weird dancing. Because there's a section where he goes to like this dingy bathroom or something and just starts dancing it up. I think
Right.
yeah, it's like wow. I bet this is very I won't say ad lib. I don't think someone came out and say, "Hey, I need you to dance exactly this way. Here are the steps." I think this is probably just a Joaquin Phoenix interpretation here. They just let
Yeah.
him do these weird little dances.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
So I definitely think that there's a lot of social commentary in this movie,
Hmm.
quite a bit. Um, so you have him and his social struggles, his um, and him being manipulated by people for a long time.
Yeah.
So his boss is really manipulative, like his quote unquote friend who gives him a gun that doesn't even like him. Like the guy is like a phony friend. He's like not even really a friend. And I'm kind of really surprised that he showed up like after his mother died, which Joker had
Yeah.
killed.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because he gives him the gun, and then almost right after that, when the Joker's boss wants to talk to him, we find out that the guy who gave him the gun, who we think is his friend, also ratted him out and said that he stole that sign that we know he actually well, we know it actually got stolen by some kids, and then he chased them and then they beat him up.
Yeah, and he also said that the gun, he's the one that told the boss that he was trying to buy a gun from somebody.
Right,
Like
yeah, yeah,
blatantly lied.
that's even more of a just straight up betrayal because he gave him a gun.
Yeah, he didn't even buy it. Like he just
Yeah.
gave it to him. So it was like a complete betrayal, and that got him fired from a job he actually enjoyed doing. You know,
Exactly, yeah.
and then
And
he went
yeah, that's
into stand-up
related
comedy.
to and the gun is related to wait, does he get fired? I think he
He
gets
got
I think he
fired
gets
because of
fired
the clown. Like the gun
when he
fell out of his pants in the
right, okay,
hospital.
so yeah, he did get fired from that when he went to the children's hospital and it was going well and then it fell out of his pocket.
Yeah, and he tried to say, "Oh, it's just a prop," and he probably could have gotten away with it, but his quote unquote friend told him that he had was trying to buy a gun and put it in the boss's head that he's definitely like this is definitely a real gun.
Yeah.
That he got straight up fired. And starts to pursue his career in stand-up comedy and then starts to date this imaginary chick.
And we see that he's really terrible at stand-up comedy, and and it quickly devolves out of his nervousness into that's an interesting thing that you mentioned before about how they establish in Joker's origins that his excessive high-pitched crazy laugh that he does is an involuntary response to when he feels nervous about something. It'll provoke the laughter in that way, so he starts just doing that on stage after saying a few really weird jokes.
Yeah, because we don't really get to see the jokes because they don't show like the punchlines or anything.
Yeah.
We can tell they're pretty bad because I know when he gets covered on that late night Joe, they're laughing at him, not with him.
Yeah.
Um, so he's made fun of. He finds out that his mom lied and is responsible for his like serious head trauma. And he gets invited on this show, and probably to get made fun of again. But he has his own plans, and we can see that his plans definitely evolved. As it seems like initially he was going to go on that show and commit suicide because when he was doing like these mock reenactments of what he was going to do on his show, he would end it by shoving the gun in his mouth, or at least a fake gun, and like blowing his brains out. I think when he got on the show, he got super worked up and like upset at the host, which drove him to go shoot him. And I
Yep.
think because of, and you remember he was about to get caught by the police, so he's running through the streets, and there's like this big movement going on, and there's a bunch of people wearing Joker masks and clown masks. And I think this is kind of like the turning point where he saw, okay, you know, people really kind of support what I did here. I'm not going to kill myself. That's kind of what I'm thinking at the end of the movie, where he sees all of these
Yeah.
people there in support of what he had done.
And it's
So
such a massive protest that's garnered so much attention that when he shows up to the studio to be on the show, they ask him if he's there dressed as a clown as a political statement, and he says that he's not. And then also when those cops are chasing him, I wanted to ask you, because they don't actually show it, but the cops get overtaken by the mob because he goes through the mob when he's being chased by the cops, and they basically get surrounded by the crowd and they beat the fuck out of them. But it doesn't show explicitly whether they kill them or not. Do you think that we're supposed to just assume that they did kill those cops, or that they just like beat the fuck out of him so he could get away?
I think it's a possibility because those cops accidentally shot one of the protesters.
Right, yeah, that's
So
true.
that's what I think worked those protesters up so much.
Yeah.
Because they were, I think they don't really tell you what happened, but my assumption is, you know, if an entire crowd is beating the shit out of you, it's you're either gonna be in a hospital for a long time, or you're gonna have like really bad head trauma, and you won't be completely like the same after that.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think you were right too about him. I didn't notice that to the same extent that you did, I think, until you mentioned it. But it does seem more clear now that you mention it, that he changed his mind after he was on the show and decided to kill Robert De Niro's character instead of just killing himself live on the show. And I wonder if part of that too was due to the crowd overtaking the cops, like you mentioned, after he saw how much support this movement got started based on him killing people. So maybe he thought, well, maybe I'm not the problem. Well, we do see that, actually. We see him realize, I'm not the problem, society is the problem, basically, right?
Well, very much towards the end, before he kills Robert De Niro, he does have a lengthy rant about how shitty society is. And he has a valid point of view, at least from his perspective, because, you know, he's always getting, in the beginning, is getting his ass kicked at various times. Um, like he's being shunned by people because of his disability. Because you remember when he was on the bus, you know, there's like this little kid that he was trying to entertain, and then her mom was just like not having it at all. And he started doing his laughing thing, and he handed her a card trying to explain like his condition. So, and she didn't really believe it. that's the thing that happens, right? This condition takes over him, and bad things tend to happen, like the subway car, like when basically this woman was being sexually harassed,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he intervenes by, I forgot what he says, but immediately after he says it, he just goes into a laughing fit. And
Yeah, I forgot what he says too.
and these three guys that were sexually harassing this woman turned their attention on him instead, and they start singing some weird song, and then at the end of that, they just start like beating his ass in the subway.
Yeah.
Until he gets, I guess, the courage to pull out a gun and just start firing on them.
Mm-hmm. And you remember when his that guy who claims to be his friend gives him the gun? At first, he says, "I'm not supposed to have a gun." So so obviously at some point earlier, due to whatever the outburst he had was, he was banned from having a gun because he's not psychologically stable enough.
Right.
It's interesting too. I don't think they actually get into the details of what his outburst was in the first place that got him into being in therapy in the first place before, as another valid point for empathizing with him, the funding gets cut for people like him who need therapy and can't afford to pay for it themselves.
No, it's definitely another more social commentary there. Like if we're just to think about, the United States, um, mental health is a big issue when we're talking about, especially when people can't afford it. Um, so there are a lot of people with mental health needs that just can't get them addressed. They have to go through government programs, and those programs are far and few between. So what do we get? A bunch of fucking wacky people who do a bunch of wacky things
Mm-hmm.
because they have no way to address these issues.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
we know how police here in the United States handle mentally ill people. It's just not good.
No.
They just the first thing they do is just get a taser
Mm-hmm.
and try to tase these people, and sometimes they forget they're not holding a taser, and they shoot them instead.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. They treat them as antagonistic, even though they may not be antagonistic at all. It could just be a side effect of whatever condition they have.
so it's not a it's basically like giving us it's a commentary on how low value um, those who have mental health issues are. And if you're going to have major mental health issues like the Joker has, your financial prospects aren't going to be very good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only cachet in which you would have good prospects is if you became an artist of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
As that's what happens. Artists tend to have some pretty interesting and weird problems, at least the really good ones. And
Yeah.
it makes sense that he would also want to be a stand-up comedian, because he has that trauma as well. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting take. Like he wants to get help for his condition. He has medications that he needs to take for his condition, and those
The
things are
one thing that's interesting about that is that we finally hear one of his super dark jokes with his acceptance of his darkness when he's talking to that woman at the very end of the film when he's at Arkham Asylum, and he said, I forget what the joke is, but he says something, and then the punchline is something about how she can't do that because she's dead. So it's like obviously a super dark and edgy joke. It makes me think that if he actually did jokes like that, he might have more success just with people who like edgy jokes just for the sake of them being edgy.
Let me see if I can find that joke at the end. But I remember he has like this new therapist
Mm-hmm.
in Arkham Asylum, Because his first therapist was just kind of this glum woman who kind of felt like she's just sitting there for a paycheck.
Yeah. And he says that at their final meeting when he comes to tell her about his problems, and she says that this is our last meeting because the funding has been cut, so we can't meet anymore. And he confronts her about that, about how she's just waiting for a paycheck and doesn't seem to be listening, and just asks him the same questions every time.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, let me see. Yeah, I'm just looking at that joke. They're talking about it, but they're not saying what it is.
Okay.
But I do see that in this interview about the director, one of his main influences was the Killing Joke. So I probably need to
Okay.
check out this graphic novel.
Yeah, I should watch this. Someone did an animated short movie of the Killing Joke. It was on Netflix at one point, but I haven't watched it. But I should watch that too, because people have been talking about that since Heath Ledger's Joker, and about it because people have speculated about that being the backstory for his version of the Joker too.
Yeah, so we know about this Joker. He definitely spends some of his realm in a fantasy realm. And I'm not saying fantasy as in like dragons and fucking wizards and shit.
Like
I'm just talking
delusions.
about, yeah, fantastical delusions. Like him appearing on that show, him doing well at the stand-up comedy set, him having like different dates with this woman that he met.
Mm-hmm.
There's this point in the film where he shows up at the woman's apartment, and this is the part where the delusion was dispelled here. So she comes in and she's like, "Who the hell are you? Get out of my apartment!"
Was
Oh,
that
you're that
at
guy that lives down the.
was that
God.
before he killed those two guys?
This was definitely after he killed his
After? Okay.
mom.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it was before he killed him or right after. It's probably before he
You
killed the
said
two guys.
you said it was after he killed his mom? Okay, it could have been after he killed those two guys then, cuz I seem to remember that it was after he killed those guys, but if it was
Oh, are you talking
before he
about
killed
his fake friend? Because he
Yeah,
only
yeah,
killed the one guy, and he let the
yeah,
little
yeah,
person
yeah. That's
go.
what I mean. The fake friend he killed. He let the little person slash midget guy go. And yeah, but I think you're right. I think that's like you said, before he kills his mom, because he kills those. I was just trying to remember the timeline. Yeah, he kills those guys, and then that's when he goes to her apartment, and she doesn't recognize him, and we find out that he's been having those delusions, and then he goes and kills his mom after he finds that file and finds out that she's been lying to him about him, about that he was Thomas Wayne's child, right?
Hmm. Right. So it is definitely this movie is entirely from the POV of Joker. Like, there's no scenes that are outside of his point of view.
Right.
So one of the things that I felt like watching this movie was really awkward. Like, just some of the scenes made me feel awkward, and I was like, man, this character is weird. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Especially like the dancing scenes and um, just like the scenes where he's getting beat up. You kind of feel bad for him. Any scene where he gets like a societal rejection. So like the Thomas Wayne confrontation, and many things around that. So it's
Hmm.
him getting fired. So it's a really weird, interesting movie. Do you think this movie portrays him as a villain?
Well, that's an interesting question because he's the protagonist, so you could say that he's the hero for that reason, and but it's hard to say how much of a villain he could be said to be because he's already been set up as a villain, as the Joker, because all other movies featuring the Joker have presented him as a villain, and Batman has been the protagonist basically, or other like good guy characters have been the protagonist. So I wonder if this had been the actual origin story of the Joker that happened before any of the movies that presented him as the bad guy, if we would actually just kind of empathize with him and see him as this tragic anti-hero in kind of a similar way as a really dark character that we love, like Logan Nine Fingers and First Law, for example. So
Mm,
I don't know. I mean, like I think that in this movie that it seems like the goal is to kind of make you empathize with him in spite of all the people that he kills and shit like that. I think that's supposed to be the kind of cynical message of the movie. So I think you're kind of supposed to see him as the hero of the movie.
right. Because the people he kills, none of them are shown in a positive light. So we're talking about the people who beat him up in the subway, the guy that totally ratted him out, um, the show host. I guess his mom is kind of like the only character that had some different viewpoints of her because of since we have a POV from Joker before he learns the business about his mom's insanity and his treatment as a child. You know, this was he treated her like a saint
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
until he heard like his whole tortured existence is kind of due to her, and she had been lying to him for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and he just turned on her by killing her. You know,
Yeah, it's kind of that's interesting too because he turned on her just as quickly as he turned on Robert De Niro's character, even though like in theory he should have a closer relationship with her because she's his mother. But I wonder how much of that is that he clearly sees him as a father figure, and how much of that is him like transitioning to just being violent and angry at the whole world and killing anyone who has slighted him in any way.
yeah, because it's weird. It almost becomes a revenge story. Like all of his
Hmm.
killings are revenge motivated.
Yep.
Um, Past the first two. So he
Yep.
kills the first two subway dudes, and then he executes the third guy.
Hmm.
As a revenge motive. He kills his fake friend as a revenge motive.
Yep.
We could, and that's why he didn't kill the little guy. Like the little guy could have been a huge liability for him, and it's likely the reason why
Yeah.
the cops ended up showing back up at his house. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. That's interesting that even though he kills people, he's not just 100 chaotic like you say he kills people out of revenge, and he spares that one guy because he doesn't feel like he's been betrayed by him. Yeah, that's true.
yeah, and then he finally kills Robert. Uh, I'm sorry, yeah, Robert De Niro for
Mhm.
making fun of him, and basically profiting off of the things that Joker, like he's profiting off of Joker's pain, basically.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to ask you too that I noticed this even more in my rewatch of the movie. It kind of seems like there are other aspects of this performance too, but with the laugh. But obviously, that's not distinct to Heath Ledger. But it seemed to me like some of what he was doing was kind of trying to copy Heath Ledger's performance in the it's maybe to some extent that dance, and also especially to his body language, the way he shot and killed Robert De Niro, and the way he shoots a few other people in the film too, especially to yeah, I think he does it almost exactly the same way that Heath Ledger does that in the Joker in the Dark Knight movie, where he shoots someone and then he turns around and walks away, then does a double take and then shoots them once more for good measure. Joaquin Phoenix does exactly that when he kills Robert De Niro.
Mm. I don't know if Heath Ledger was part of his research regimen. I wouldn't doubt it wasn't. I'm pretty sure Joaquin Phoenix would have looking at an Oscar award-winning uh, portrayal of the same character that he's going to portray, and I wouldn't doubt that he looked at Heath Ledger's performance for some inspiration for his own.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that scene now that you mentioned it, where he's shooting him in the head, because he just kind of like laughs. Has like a laughing fit like right after it, and then he gets back up and shoots him in the chest. And he looks at him like, "Did I kill him?" He's about to shoot him a third time, but he's like, "Oh, I think he's like dead or whatever." You know?
Yeah. Yeah, the little things like that are so brilliant, and I'm not saying that that Joaquin Phoenix necessarily was just trying to 100% emulate Heath Ledger's performance, but it's cool that he did some of those weird body language things like that.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too because this character becomes more confident throughout the movie. Because when he starts, he's not very confident about much of anything, and
yeah,
like by the end of the movie, it's like peak confidence for this character.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think we've talked a lot about this. What is your favorite scene from this movie?
Oh, it's so hard to say. Probably probably the most violent parts, really, because like that's the movie's so dark. I wonder, I would say that it might have to be either when he kills Robert De Niro, or the very last part of the movie when he tells that really dark joke to that therapist at Arkham Asylum, and then we see him running down the hallway laughing with bloody footprints, because that's like at the height of the darkness of the movie.
Yeah, my favorite scene was when he killed the fake friend. Not because of the gruesomeness of the scene, but because of the complexity of the character and the tension that they were actually building between him and like the little person. So there was like this tension that he is possibly crazy and then he's going to kill this little guy too. But it almost seems like at the end of the scene, they kind of establish that this character has some type of principle when it comes to killing people. It's not just like this weird psychotic outburst. And it seems like he has a particular purpose.
Yeah,
when he's killing.
That's really interesting too, because you can understand why that little guy is like alarmed and confused, because the way that he kills that guy just seems so totally random and spontaneous and coming out of nowhere. But he does have that reason for it. Maybe he just did that to surprise him, because I mean, obviously he's this little skinny guy, and the guy who in his mind betrayed him is this huge fat guy. So that would kind of make sense tactically, I guess, if you're wanting to kill someone.
Yeah, like his first thing was to lock the door behind them, right? So it's almost like, oh, this guy's here.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, I thought that was an interesting and complex scene with a lot of tension in it. Because that made me feel like, oh man, where is this gonna go? What's gonna happen to this little dude? Because he had locked the door, remember, and the little dude had to ask Arthur to unlock it for him.
Yeah, that was
It was
like
like
that was a funny dark comedic moment. He had to get him to unlatch the door for him.
I was like, okay, this is when he's gonna kill him, but no, he let him go.
Yeah. I also liked the whole interview with the Joker and Robert De Niro leading up to him killing him. Especially the part where he confesses to killing those three guys on the subway, and then he and Robert De Niro have that actually little moral discussion about it, and Robert De Niro is actually trying to change his mind about stuff. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, his philosophy basically becomes on display in that last scene. And that's where he talks about the justification. And it's weird because he said that it wasn't a political statement, but he kind of affirms the larger movement's anger and basically affirms that, when he talks about how society has been bad to him. So it's like, yeah, I'm not wearing this yet to be political. But, I still have some things to say about the state of the world. So, if you were to rate this movie out of 5, what would you give it?
5. My second favorite Joker performance. Heath Ledger is my favorite, but this whole idea of the movie entirely about the Joker from his perspective is brilliant.
Yeah, I would say I do like Heath Ledger's Joker. The only thing I would say though is that Heath Ledger's Joker is more entertaining. It is more surface level. And I'm gonna give the one up. I do really like Heath Ledger's Joker, but I understand the difficulty of the role that Joaquin Phoenix acted, and I think Joaquin Phoenix's performance, because I thought it was much more difficult, and I thought he should receive more credit just on that basis alone. Because imagine if the whole second Dark Knight movie was basically everything was from Heath Ledger's POV, that'd be a pretty different movie.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Heath Ledger, he does a great job, but we also have, the protagonist who also does a lot of heavy lifting in the movie as well. It almost seems like the entire movie of the Joker is on Joaquin Phoenix's shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's such different movies that I was just thinking that I don't even know how I would rate them if I had to compare Joker versus The Dark Knight just as movies. If you're not talking about specifically Joaquin Phoenix's performance versus Heath Ledger's performance, I mean, because there's such different movies. This is a dark anti-hero movie, and in The Dark Knight, you have the amazing performance of the Joker, but he's still the villain, and it's still centered around Batman, and it's more of a superhero movie. They're both really interesting appearances of the Joker. I just think they're I give both movies 5 out of 5 stars basically, but they're both totally different movies in some ways, even though they have the same character.
Yeah, because it would be more apt to compare like Ledger's Joker to maybe Nicholson's Joker or Leto's Joker, because they're all like villains in those movies,
Yeah.
and they all play kind of the classic Joker role. Whereas this is really really different from those movies.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite Joker voice though is Mark Hamill.
Oh yeah, that's in the Arkham Asylum video games.
Yeah, he plays Joker in the video games as well as Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
that's my favorite Batman Joker voice.
I don't think I've heard it before because I haven't played those games, and I don't know if I've heard.
The cartoon?
I've seen like 2 or 3 different Batman series, so I don't know if I've seen the one that he's in.
It's the original one.
Is it that
came out
like
in like
one
the
in
early 90s?
Oh, well, maybe I did then, because I was gonna say I think I watched I think it's the original or whatever the one was that was in the 90s that I thought was maybe the original.
The original is simply called Batman the Animated Series.
Okay.
The one that came after that was Batman Beyond.
Okay, I definitely did watch that one then, because I remember Batman Beyond was after the one that I watched.
Yeah, so you've definitely seen it. Kevin Conway is also my favorite Batman voice.
Okay.
The guy that plays the Batman in the animated series. These guys play the game voices as well.
Okay. I remember that movie. I remember really liking that movie with that Batman, the Mask of Phantasm.
Oh yeah, I remember that was like a big deal because it actually showed blood. Like, there's
okay.
blood. Because in the regular TV show, there was never any blood.
Okay.
But they decided to put some in that show. And I remember the main villain, like when they unmasked the villain, it ended up being a woman. That was like a huge shocker.
Okay.
But yeah, 5 out of 5 for me, man. Like after I finished watching it, I was like, "What the fuck did I just watch?" Just this.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the same sense I get when I watch any dark movie like Taxi Driver or Fight Club, which also has some similarities to this. At the end of it, I'm just like, holy fuck. I like that, even though I know I'm not supposed to like that.
Yeah, because the reason I watched it is one of my neighbors just handed me like 3 DVDs and it's like, our Blu-rays. He's like, okay, watch these movies and then tell me about them.
Oh, okay.
And The Joker was the first one I watched. He gave me Tenet.
Oh, sweet. Did you watch that?
Yeah, I also watched it.
Oh,
Very
dude, we
good
have
as
to
well.
we have to do a movie chat about that on preferably my channel, but yours would be cool too, where we should talk about it either way, because I love that movie, and I know a lot of people hate it because they think that Christopher Nolan has gone so far with his complexity that it's become intellectual masturbation in his movies. But I like the fact that I had to watch it twice to understand what the fuck was going on. And I like all of the interesting directions that they went with it.
Yeah, I didn't watch it completely twice. I watched it all the way up to the end, and then I watched like the beginning 10 minutes. I was like, okay. Because I know in the beginning 10 minutes, you see like the reverse bullet happen. And then you realize that that's like the guy, his buddy from the future, saving him. So I was like, okay. It's
so
such
cool.
a weird movie. Like
it's so cool.
Inverse,
like
and all that stuff.
I think I've seen it 3 times. It's one of those movies where you get more and more of it, just like a lot of Christopher Nolan movies, every time you watch it. And it's so interesting what they do with time. It's basically yourself in the future sent your friend from the past back to get yourself in the past to start this project to save the future from a bomb to save all of time from a bomb from the future from a Russian supervillain who wants to destroy all of time. It's a really cool, really awesome sci-fi plot.
Yeah, and the whole reverse time stuff is really crazy. And how they implemented that in the movie, like the first that fight scene where he fights himself, and then we don't even know that he's fighting himself
That's my
until
favorite
like,
scene of the whole movie, when he's fighting himself backwards in the past and the future
and then
simultaneously. That's so
we
cool.
get to see both of those scenes like
Yeah,
play out. It's just weird.
yeah. It's so cool
um,
because you see it backwards from both different perspectives, right?
right. And then whenever like he's in backwards land or whatever you want to call it, like the music is reversed, like
Yeah,
the musical
yeah,
score plays in reverse. Because that
yeah.
really helped me during the last fight. When there's like they're always changing the point of view from like forward in time to reverse time. And the only way I was able to keep track of it was by like how the music was being played.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
It was a crazy movie.
That
Um,
guy who's the main character is a great actor too. That I didn't know until more recently that that's Denzel Washington's son.
is it? Holy
Yeah,
shit. I had
yeah.
no fucking clue. Really?
After I heard that, the next time I watched the movie, I'm like, oh, his voice sounds kind of similar to Denzel Washington's voice a little bit.
I had no idea. What's his name?
I don't remember his name. I'm gonna look that up right now. But I think
Because
he
I
has the
know his
same.
character
I think,
doesn't even have a name in the movie.
yeah, he's just the protagonist. I think John David Washington. Yeah, I was gonna say. I think he has the
Ah,
same last name too. Yeah, I think he's
okay.
a former football player also. Actually,
Hmm. Well, that's interesting. I had no clue.
yeah,
No
this is the
clue.
only movie I've ever seen him in. Have you seen him in anything else?
No, that's the only one I've seen him in.
Okay.
I think most of the actors in this movie I don't have real familiarity with.
Yeah. I saw this guy who's the Middle Eastern character who's working with the protagonist and Robert Pattinson's character. The only other movie I've seen that guy in is after this, when he was in Don't Look Up and he plays Jennifer Lawrence's boyfriend.
Oh, is that the same guy?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay, I didn't even know. All
yeah.
right.
And obviously,
Oh,
like, Robert Pattinson is the only other one that I recognized when I first watched this movie, and Michael Caine, because he's in every Christopher Nolan movie now. Other than, I don't think he was in Dunkirk.
Patterson. Which character was that?
Robert Pattinson in
Yeah.
Tenet, he was the CIA guy who was working with the protagonist. Remember?
Well, what other movies is he in?
Oh, Robert Pattinson. He first became famous from those Twilight movies, right?
Oh, I've
I
never
never
seen any of them, so
Good for
I
you.
guess that's
Don't
why I
do
wouldn't
it. It's a
know.
waste of time. It ruins the vampire genre. I got tricked into watching the first one because a hot girl told me that it was all action packed and stuff. So the entire movie, I kept saying, "Bite her, bite her. What are you doing? There are no vegetarian vampires. Bite her. You're a bad guy. Bite her. Stop. Do it. What is wrong with you?" And so, but he's like, this movie shows that he can do good performances in good movies. And also, well, like we were talking about the new Batman movie, The Batman, I think his performance in that is good too. And
So he's
he's
the
been in,
Batman?
yeah, he's the
Okay.
Batman. And also, he was also in this movie. I'm not sure whether I actually watched it, or I think I did because I read the book, but it's this movie called Water for Elephants, which by, I think the author's name is Sarah Gruen. and it's it's about I think he plays a member in a circus who is married to this woman who falls in love with the main character who joins the circus. I don't remember the details very well. I thought it was a pretty good book though.
Okay.
But he's been in some other science fiction movie relatively recently that I want to watch too. I forget what it's called. But I think he's a pretty good actor, and he's done some interesting roles since those terrible movies that I'm never going to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man.
I love vampires. It sucks when they make it into this stupid, sappy teenage romance shit.
Well, there was a bunch of that going on in the 2010s, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's sad.
It's like a bunch of different vampire like teen shows.
Yeah.
I never watched any of them, but I knew they were around.
I watched some of True Blood. I thought that one was kind of good at first, and then I just got bored.
Yeah, that one wasn't teen angst though. I didn't consider it teen angst.
Yeah, it was pretty good overall.
Yeah, because there were adults and they were already fucking each other, so it's kind of, you know, beyond the teen angst type of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so we can get into I'm going to evolve this section. What did you read or what did you watch?
Well, I told you that I just finished watching. Well, no, I just finished watching the new Batman movie today, actually, and yeah, we're gonna talk about that on my channel tomorrow. I think they went some really interesting directions with how Batman he learns the error of his ways and he changes the way that he's going to do things, and it's basically presented as a film noir detective story. And, you know, we talked before we started this about how people have accused it of being woke, but that doesn't really make that much sense. And yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting version of it. So, but yeah, we'll get more into that tomorrow. And I guess we were also talking before I started this about how I'm caught up on that new Halo show now, and I'm really not a big fan of it so far. I liked all the Spartans fighting Covenant stuff, but I don't like most of the rest of the stuff because they're just retconning like motherfuckers with all this like Dr. what's her name? Halsey. How she lied to John and kidnapped him as a child and replaced him with some clone or something. Like, why are you? I mean, this is the kind of thing that pisses me off because it's a kind of thing that, as Daniel Green was saying in his review of episode 1, it's stuff that would be interesting about any other random sci-fi show. It's interesting concepts to explore, but it shouldn't be the case that you would think this is interesting if you haven't read the games. But if you have read the games, you know how ridiculous and out of nowhere it is to manufacture this whole giant conspiracy backstory about how the Spartans were formed.
Well, the Flash cloning is canon, so them swapping the children with clones is actually canon.
But they weren't swapped with clones.
They were swapped with clones. Like the children that were taken were replaced with clones.
Does that happen in the Fall of Reach book?
From what I've read online, it's explained more in some of the other books.
Okay, because I don't think that happens in the Fall of Reach books.
No, in the Fall of Reach, we don't really get to see how the children were taken.
Okay.
They just kind of end up at this facility, and
I don't like all this like making this
like the memory
John
stuff
all emotional and having
taking the pill thing out of their back.
Yeah, all of these things. They're interesting science fiction concepts to explore for sure, but they don't give me the feeling of Halo at all. Halo is supposed to be mostly Master Chief killing Covenant, so it doesn't need to be that, but it should be mostly Spartans killing Covenant, or at least UNSC soldiers versus Covenant and all this stuff. But I mean, I get that, like, the whole thing about trying to recover a Covenant artifact and the sort of thing with the John being part of a prophecy. That's more closely related to the game, and that is interesting too. But some of the things like this character Quan, that, like, she's just really boring and annoying to me, and his John's friend is kind of interesting, but I don't really care about his whole backstory and him being involved with Quan and that sort of stuff. And then this human character who's working for the Covenant, I don't buy that at all.
Yeah, I think what sucks is I actually like Thorin, but it sucks that they're pairing him up with a character I actually loathe. Like, I don't like Quan at all. Like,
Yeah.
just stupid decision after stupid decision and extreme naivete. It just makes me want to punch the character in the face, you know.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be like a protagonist, you know. Oh, I want to. It's like she's worrying about liberating the planet from some tyrant while they have this fucking huge alien threat to fucking think about.
Yeah, that's really
Uh,
stupid. And also,
yeah.
I really don't care about this other Spartan character. I forget what her name is, but the blonde woman who dyes her
Guy.
hair with red streaks because she takes out the emotion chip in her back, just like John does. I really don't care about this whole side story about how she's questioning her motives because she finally has emotions and she's becoming more human. I don't care. That's a subtlety that's really interesting and kind of like cyborg slash AI stories in general, but that's not what Halo is supposed to be, man.
I guess like I'm just going with the flow. Like I have to see how they're gonna end it. Like I usually hold my judgment until I can see the entirety of it, because I have to see what kind of payoff this is gonna have. So maybe it might have a cool payoff. Who knows?
I hope so. You have more patience for that than I do. That's why I bailed on Elantris, and you love it because the ending is worth it for you, because those Brandon Sanderson endings are definitely
Oh,
giant
the ending
climaxes.
to Elantris is very, very good.
Yeah, I've heard that from everyone, even people who have criticized the pacing of the book as much as I have.
Yeah, I didn't mind the pacing at all, to be honest. Like, I understand what you mean. Like, there's these three character points of view, and at least from two of the character points of view, like the religious, like zealot guy and like the princess, it's all almost entirely like political maneuvering. And then you have the other guy that's in the city trying to figure out what's wrong and why everybody got turned into zombies. Um, there's that guy, and then like the kind of factions within that weird city. I don't know. I didn't have any problem with the pacing. I was really drawn into that particular world. So I didn't really have that big of a problem with that story.
I just didn't find it that interesting. It's definitely by far the least interesting world that I've ever encountered in Brandon Sanderson's work. And some of his worlds are fucking fascinating and so phenomenally immersive to me, like the Mistborn and Stormlight Archive worlds, for example.
Well, it's pretty interesting. Like, in my opinion, if anybody were to fight, because there's these different magic systems in the Cosmere, right? What I believe is that if anyone fought the main character of Elantris on his home turf, nobody would be able to beat him. That's how powerful that character is.
Yeah, they talk about I forget. I think it was when I was watching that 16 Shard podcast recently, which is that uber nerdy Brandon Sanderson podcast with uber Brandon Sanderson nerds who I think all or at least some of whom are actually literally beta readers rather for him.
Uh-huh.
Have you listened to that? It's really cool if you want to nerd out about Brandon Sanderson stuff. But they were
It sounds like I will need to.
they were reviewing his 4 secret projects, and they were talking about that 4th one, which is my favorite by far, which I knew it would be because it's the most Cosmere filled one. And they were talking about the history of the Elantrians and how their history goes back so much farther, and they're so much more powerful than other characters.
Yeah, they're strong as fuck. Like those original Elantrians are like ridiculously strong. So if any of the other Cosmere people, like if Alamancers or Knights Radiant were gonna show up and try to fight them, they would get totally destroyed. That's how powerful the damn Elantrians are. They're like ridiculously strong, but they're only strong when they're in their home turf. So their power is very localized.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting aspect of it.
So they'd be like the best defenders of their home turf, but they would not be good like sending abroad to fight people.
Right.
What is this podcast called? Is it called the Shardcast?
It's called 17th Shard. Yeah, Shardcast.
Okay,
That's what they call it. That's what they call their podcast, Shardcasts.
All right, I'm gonna have to add this one to my list.
Yeah, definitely check it out. They go fucking deep. Yeah.
I saw that you read Why Trust Science?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was interesting. I guess I'm still more skeptical of science than the conclusions that the author comes for in the book. But I like some of the criticisms by the authors she mentions, like Thomas Kuhn and Stephen Jay Gould rather. But I appreciate the arguments and defenses that she makes of science and how there isn't necessarily one scientific method. But I just am skeptical of it being a self-correcting process, even though I do trust scientific expertise to a certain degree myself too.
Right. I know that was written in the Trump era, so there's a lot of critique there.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because Trump changes his opinions on shit so much that they talk about Trump's anti-vaccine rhetoric, and then now a lot of Trump supporters got pissed off because he's talked about how I like the vaccine, I took the vaccine is great, okay? We won with the vaccine, okay?
Yeah, he's kind of a flip-flopper in that way.
Yeah.
So you also started that other Halo book, or you finished it?
Yeah, I finished it. I think it's called Cryptum. That was interesting because it's one with the what is it? The Forerunners. Yeah. So it goes way back for thousands and thousands of years into the history of the Forerunners, which are the ancients who the Covenants talk about in the games, who built a whole bunch of structures. And we see in the book that they built a whole lot of planets too. So it's pretty interesting because it really expands the Halo universe a lot. But it's definitely, I still don't like it as much as something like The Fall of Reach, because I still like getting into the history of the Spartans.
Yeah, the Forerunners is just like the ancient alien civilization that built Halo.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. Was there anything else notable that you watched or read recently?
Let me see. Oh, I read well, actually I'm just about finished this book in, I think it's the fourth book in the Resident Evil series that I've been reading that are novelizations of the games, and this one is good. I still don't like it as much as the previous one because I thought it had more character viewpoints and it was more complex. This one is I think I gave it 3 stars because it's just kind of standard. Okay, Rogue Star members who've been betrayed by Umbrella go and investigate a secret lab and they have to fight a whole bunch of monsters and then destroy the lab. And so it's pretty like pretty standard with bad dialogue and stuff, but it's cool with all the killing zombies and stuff and all the different kinds of zombie monsters.
You said bad dialogue. Okay.
Let me see. What else did I read lately?
The history of the English language.
Oh yeah. That one is a super dry and academic book, so I definitely don't recommend it to everyone. But there's some really interesting tidbits of information there. That's why I don't mind reading really dry academic nonfiction books, because sometimes there's a lot of really valuable and interesting information in there. It really goes really in depth into all of the various origins of the English language, like Middle English, Old English, the Indo-European languages, the Germanic origins, Celtic origins, and the Viking origins, basically, and how many the a few examples of things that they list for having been responsible for the invention of words were the First and Second World Wars led to the invention of a whole lot of different words, especially German ones for names of different types of military equipment and artillery and stuff like that, and a lot of British terms as well. And it gets into there's this one interesting aspect of French about how at one point in history, French was spoken by upper class elites, and it was seen as this more pure language than English. I think this was maybe around the 1500s, and then a few hundred years later, in more of like the age of the Enlightenment, around the 1700s, English was seen as the more pure language, and French was seen as impure in comparison to English. And the upper class societies were they agreed about that too. And it was interesting too, because when the upper class elites, they thought French was more pure, so they preferred using French. It was also the educational and religious institutions like churches and early universities, which were started by churches. You had in just like how before that you had to write in Latin if you were in a church or going to a university, you had to do it in French during this era when French was the language preferred by the upper class aristocrats of society.
Okay, seems very dry.
Yeah.
Probably something I won't be interested in reading. All right, so I guess I'll get into my things. I haven't finished Why Trust Science. I'm still getting through that. I'm actually working on Soul of the Fire, which is very good kind of book. Number
Is
5.
that number 5 you said?
Yeah, that's number 5.
Oh, okay. Should I start reading that too? Do you want to talk about that soon?
Yeah, you can talk. This book is pretty slowly paced.
Okay.
But yeah, you can start reading it. Do you have the physical copy?
I'm pretty sure I do.
Okay. So yeah, I've been listening to that. I think I haven't really got through too much stuff reading wise. I've been slowly getting through more Wheel of Time stuff. One of the movies I forgot to tell you that I watched is called Willy's Wonderland. Have you heard of this movie?
No.
Stars Nick Cage.
Oh, okay. Is it newer or when
Wow.
did it come out?
It's recent. I think it came out a
Okay.
couple of years ago. Let me see. Oh, it came out last year actually.
Okay.
So it's a really recent movie. Um, I'm wondering if I should recommend this to you. Do you like silly horror movies?
Yeah, it depends. It depends. Like
This one is
something
just
like
so
Evil Dead?
silly. Um,
Or more
I
like
guess it's
Scary
that
Movie?
silly. No, it's not like scary movies silly. It's probably more towards Evil Dead silly.
Okay. Yeah, depending on the movie, I do.
Well, Nick Cage is in it.
Okay.
So
I do like
he's
Nick
like the
Cage.
main character.
I do like Nick Cage.
Let me see. I guess the action horror comedy is what its genre is.
That is a good genre.
I think you'd like it. It's like so ridiculous.
Okay. What's it
uh,
called?
Willy's Wonderland.
Okay. I can see
Um,
if I can find it.
yeah, if you watch a trailer, you're gonna be like, "What WTF?" But basically,
I
do you guys have Chuck E. Cheese's in Canada?
don't think we do, but I know
Do
it.
you know what a Chuck E. Cheese is?
Yeah, I know what it is.
So explain to me what you think a Chuck E. Cheese is.
I think it's kind of like one of those restaurants where people go to have kids' birthday parties, or they're like family restaurants, and they have, fast food and something like McDonald's play pits or something like that. I don't know.
You're pretty close. So this is not based off of modern Chuck E. Cheese's. This is more based off of Chuck E. Cheese's from the 80s. Back in the 80s, like Chuck E. Cheese is kind of a family place. Of course, lots of kids' birthday parties are done there. So you would have like games. So we're talking about arcade games and games like skee ball and those physical type of games that you could play to win tickets for. And then they have like a little eating area where you can get pizza and stuff like that. And then there's like a little stage. So in the 80s, the actual in-house band was animatronic.
Okay.
So there were just like a bunch of animatronic animals that just sang songs. The new Chuck E. Cheese is not like that at all. There's no more animatronics. I kind of miss that. It's like animatron. Like if I was to come out with a Chuck E. Cheese type place, I definitely would invest in animatronics. But maybe it's just too expensive or too hard to maintain these days.
Hmm.
I kind of remember that stuff from my youth. I'm pretty sure there's still a lot of animatronics at Disneyland and stuff, but you don't see them a whole lot nowadays. So basically, this movie is about this place that's kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese, but it's like a possessed Chuck E. Cheese.
Interesting.
And Nick Cage is like the main star of this movie. This is one of the
Okay.
three movies that my neighbor handed to me to watch. Um,
Okay.
and this one is so ridiculous. It's pretty funny, but it's wow. Nick Cage doing a horror movie last year, and I didn't even know about it.
Nice.
But yeah, I watched that. I watched the Halo. Did you ever get around to watching episode 3?
No, I didn't go back and see if that one is available. Like I said before, it didn't show 3 on that website for some reason, but 4 and 5 it did. So yeah, I can go
Okay.
back and see if it does.
Yeah, 3 is like how Cortana is made, and it's pretty kind of crazy how she was made.
Okay.
Well, anyway, yeah, I watched the Halo, and I watched a lot of 90 Day freaking Fiance. Like I'm so wrapped up in this goddamn show that I've been listening to 90 Day Fiance podcast.
Okay.
That's how goddamn random. So what is okay? So here am I to explain what the premise of the show is. 90 Day Fiance is a show based off of a rule with the American K-1 visa, which is a K-1 visa is a type of visa you get for a fiance from another country. And once they are in our country, that you have 90 days to marry them, else they go back to their country.
Hmm.
So the 90 days is supposed to be like kind of like a grace period for you to get to know the fiance before you marry them. So the drama is like, oh, are they going to marry this foreigner? So one of the interesting things about the show, it's entirely, to me, it's entirely about culture clash and how people relate to other people's cultures and customs. That's probably the most interesting thing about the show. Is how other people view American customs is really interesting to me from different countries, and how people view other customs from other countries and how they kind of navigate those things. But
Right.
I and how you would like a lot of it too is about long distance relationships and like the consequences of marrying somebody that's not from your country, like the difficulties that occur. But
Right.
yeah, I just got sucked in recently. There's just been a lot of drama about a lot of these people that show up on the show. Like for instance, one of the more recent cast members from last season was just sentenced to 18 years to prison um, for like beating, like he beat up his ex and kidnapped her. And, the guy was a really nasty guy, but I had no clue. You wouldn't have assumed this, like if you had watched the show. And the dude was like a total player. Like I think he had like many different girlfriends at once. That was uncovered, but yeah, the show's kind of crazy. Like, um, it's a cringe fest. Lots of cringe. Like if you like cringing at human behavior, then this is the show for you. Um, it's just crazy. Some of it is just nuts. It's just interesting to see what people will say. Um, it also teaches me of what not to do or say in my own relationships. And showing like looking at that and saying, okay, this is not something I should ever do, and I should learn from that experience. But
Right.
yeah, that's what 90 Day Fiance is about. It's about it's like culture clashes, relationships, and trying to meet in between. Like some of my favorites, and you know these are gonna end usually pretty poorly, is when Americans go over to get a fiance from a Middle Eastern country and they don't respect their culture and their customs. So a lot of them seem to be Middle Eastern men and an American woman going over there and them not respecting like the conservative um, way that those societies and those cultures live their lives. So I think one of the most recent ones is she went over there to visit her potential fiance, and like right off the bat, she wants to have sex with them, but that's not how they roll in that society. Um, and the guy lives at home with his parents, so they actually do end up having sex. And then the mother like walks in on them in the morning, and they were not supposed to be sharing a room. So in that
Okay.
society, you have to live separately until you're married. And he had snuck into her room, but he failed to leave the room in time, and they were discovered. So it's just like stuff like that, like seeing how these cultures interact, how they view Americans and American culture, because it's always one American and somebody else from another country. So there's always that
Okay.
interaction there. That'd be interesting to see. But they
Okay.
always do they don't do, most of the countries they pick are not, like there are some Western countries that they got fiancés from, but that is like very few. Most of it is like non-Western countries, and some of it is like almost like mail order bride level stuff, and seeing like these super desperate men looking for foreign wives that are like way, way younger than them. And it's super awkward seeing these super desperate older dudes looking for like Ukrainian wives and stuff. It's really weird.
Yeah, I bet. I've seen what seems clearly like that sort of situation a few times in jobs I used to have in the customer service industry, where a super old guy would come in with his wife who is 20s or 30s, and it seems like she's from I don't know, like Sweden or Ukraine or somewhere like that, and she doesn't understand English very well.
Yeah, you can clearly tell that some of those marriages are transactional. Like the main motivation for this woman to want to leave Ukraine is because Ukraine is like, yeah, there's like some bad shit happening in Ukraine right now, but Ukraine is not the most rife country with opportunity, and many of these Ukrainian women uh, don't want to date Ukrainian men because of that reason. So it's pretty crazy. You could definitely see. And that's what it is for the most part. Like a lot of Americans, like the vast majority of the Americans are not like physically attractive.
Yeah.
So that goes either for the men or the women. There are some that are okay looking, some that are pretty decent looking, but it's really weird when usually the hotter the couple, the less likely that they speak each other's language very well at all. So there's
Oh,
always
that's
these
funny.
there's always these weird communication issues that they have, where they might just talk through like a Google Translate translator, and of course that doesn't.
What if they want to talk
Yeah,
dirty during sex to each other? Do they have to go?
they have to research like the dirty talk first,
Oh yeah, baby, do it harder. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, exactly. There are, yeah. So it's just really interesting to see. It's kind of like a travel show too, because they're always traveling to these other countries, right?
Right.
And going on like these really like dates and stuff. So it's travel slash relationship slash culture investigation. So there's multiple reasons why you can watch the show. It's just like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I learned some stuff about Russia today, or I've learned some stuff about Peru today. But yeah, it's an interesting show. It's one of the more I would say popular reality TV shows. I had no idea how popular it was, but apparently a lot of fucking celebrities watch it. And a
Oh
lot of these
dear.
people who actually appear on the show become like influencer famous. So they pivot like their 90 Day Fiance success into other ventures and stuff.
Oh, of course.
So it's pretty interesting. And there's like it's the cast is always changing, so that's why I like it too. There's always new faces, so you're not always stuck with one family and their weird fucking issues. There's always a rotating cast of people and new relationships that they cover.
Okay.
Oh yeah, 90 Day Fiance. I don't know why I'm still hooked on it right now. It's just like me and my wife are like, oh man, let's watch the next episode of 90 Day
Okay.
Fiance. And it's pretty hard to binge watch because each episode is like an hour and a half long. It's really
Holy
long.
shit! Why are they so long?
I think when they air on TV, they're like 2 hours long. You know, with commercials.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's really long. Like the most ridiculous one I'm watching is this girl, and she's a big girl. She's from Idaho, and she's like obsessed with anime and Asian culture. So she wants to get married to this like Chinese guy. And it's such a weird, and it's funny because this was filmed during the pandemic, and she's like super upset because the Chinese guy doesn't want to travel because of COVID. And this is like during Delta, and she's like, oh, nothing's gonna happen. People are traveling all over the world, and you can do it safely. And the Chinese guy's like, yeah, that's like the American way of thinking. And I just kind of laughed at that. I was like, yeah, that's fucking true. Like, what he said is true. Like, she's not really caring about like the actual pandemic that much. And he, from being from China where everything's locked down tight, and if you're in China and you're looking at like the COVID numbers in the US, who the fuck wants to go to US when the COVID numbers are that
Yeah.
high? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is like during Delta.
Yeah.
So it's
That was
interesting
when it
how
was the
legitimate.
worst.
Yeah, so I was like on his side. I was like, yeah, I'd be worried to go to the US right now, considering how rampant like the Delta virus was going on. And his girl was like, oh, she was like super upset that he was trying to postpone the trip. I was like, man, I feel you, man. Like, I totally get it. I think if I was a Chinese dude, I would have real apprehensions in traveling to the US.
Yeah, I get that.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Man, you
film.
nerd out about 90 Day Fiance just as much as we do about sci-fi and fantasy books.
Well, the 90 Day Fiance is like one of the things that I nerd out. It's like I have my own personal nerd out stuff, and then I have the stuff I nerd out with my wife. And we usually nerd out like our nerd outs are based off of TV shows. So like our first nerd out was like what did we first watch together? Like Game of Thrones. Like we nerded
Oh,
out
that's
completely
cool.
over Game of Thrones. We've nerded out on other various like TV shows. This is just kind of like the one that we're nerding out right now over. It's just 90 Day Fiance.
Okay. I'll skip it.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to Katie, but like the only people I'd recommend it to couples, because I think couples would find that there are definitely things you could learn about observing these couples' misbehaviors. But I wouldn't recommend it to single people. I was like, why would you want to watch this shit? It's just mostly it's just couples fighting over cultural differences and trying to navigate those things.
Yeah, that sounds frustrating.
Well, it's definitely applicable to my life because there are definite cultural differences between my wife and I.
Right.
Because she's brought up in Latin culture, Puerto Rico, and the Caribbean, and it's definitely different than how I was brought up.
Okay.
So it just happens to be uniquely applicable to, and then we had a long distance relationship as well, so we kind of get it.
Okay.
We get like the difficulties that these couples are going through.
Okay.
So we don't have to deal with like visas and shit because Puerto Rico is not another country.
Okay.
But yeah, that's it, man. Yeah, sorry to nerd out
All
on
right.
the 90 Day Fiance stuff, but
No, that's okay.
I've been just
Interesting.
super ingrained into it that I'm listening to fucking podcasts about the
Oh shit!
the
Really?
episode. Yeah, I've been
Like
listening
the
to this
way that we
podcast,
do about like
like
just
Brandon
watch spoilers
Sanderson
and
and
shit like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
same deal. Like it's a couple of people who analyze these people's behaviors and talk crap about these couples and praise them when they get things right. But yeah, it's the same deal.
Dude, you should turn this whole last part of the podcast into a clip of you nerding out about 90 Day Fiance.
I might just take this clip and say, hey, why the fuck am I watching? Like when I was younger, I absolutely abhorred reality TV, but there is still some reality TV that I abhor. Like I think any of the Kardashian shit is just fucking dumb. Like, I
Yeah,
can't.
I tried watching an episode of that once, and I like I stopped after 5 minutes because it felt like it was making me dumber by the second. I did the same thing with Jersey Shore once. I quit after
Yeah,
5 seconds because I felt like I was becoming a very quickly dumber person.
yeah. I never really got into like any of those MTV reality shows. Because like the early ones, what were they called? Like Real Life or something like that.
Like Big
And it's
Brother,
just
and that was one of them. And
well, it's all the
Survivor.
premise is just like, oh, let's put a bunch of people in the fucking house and film them.
Yeah,
You know.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I was never into that. Like I kind of like these shows that are based off of like real problems and real issues.
Hmm.
Yeah, because you get to see some really shady stuff, like man, this desperate guy that just got catfished by this his so-called Ukrainian fiance, who he has never video chatted with, but has essentially maintained a 9-year relationship with.
Oh wow.
Yeah, red flags, red flags.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, you occasionally do get some catfishes on the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And it's funny because some of these reality stars end up making the news for different reasons. Like I know one of the girls that was like in a same-sex relationship on this. She ended up being covered by the news because she sold farts in jars.
Oh, it's that
And
girl?
yeah, she was on
Oh,
90 Day Fiance.
I had no idea. I've heard about her because I heard people saying that about her selling her farts, and that she altered her diet so much and was farting so much that it gave her a heart attack or something like that.
No, she had to go to the hospital. Yeah, so she retired from
Right.
farting in jars. But yeah, she was a cast member from 90 Day Fiance.
Okay.
So
That's so
I've already
funny.
seen her. I've already seen her like story, and she's a fucking piece of work. I didn't like her at all. She was just not a very good person.
Oh, that's so funny. A terrible person selling farts.
Yeah, selling parts online.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's an interesting show. It's just interesting to see what these people do with their lives after if they're no longer on the show.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, 90 Day Fiance. So I'm probably gonna watch Batman after we're done here, and then probably an episode of 90 Day Fiance. Maybe I'll watch some more One Piece. I've been juggling around, man. I've been watching, trying to rewatch Cowboy Bebop. I
Oh
watched a
yeah,
couple
you
more
mentioned
episodes
that.
this week.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah,
do that too.
I think when I first watched Cowboy Bebop, I didn't like it.
No?
No, one of the
I
reasons I didn't like it. Go ahead.
I watched it so long ago that I don't even remember what I thought of it. It's one of the ones I watched when I was a teenager.
Well, I watched it probably over 10 years ago. And when I watched it, I was like, this ain't that great. Like, one of the main reasons I didn't like it is because it was like a serialized show. So each episode didn't really have anything to do with the other episodes. So there was no ongoing story that they were kind of telling. So now that I'm back into it, I'm kind of appreciating it a bit because the story that they do tell are pretty morally complex. And I really didn't think about that at the time when I watched them when I was much younger.
Oh, okay.
Of the moral complexities of the show.
Okay.
So I'm really enjoying that. And the animation quality and the attention to detail is actually pretty amazing considering when this was made.
Okay.
So that's also pretty impressive about this show. But yeah, I'm getting back into it, and I was like, okay, I'm guessing I'm having more of an appreciation of this show now that I can watch it with a better developed brain, so to speak.
I get that. Yeah, that's happened with me with lots of movies and shows and books before. But then it's happened in the opposite direction too. Like I was telling you about that with these Resident Evil books that I've been reading. They're still a fun, entertaining read, but there's super fucking cheesy dialogue and super formulaic plots. It's basically, all right, guys, we're gonna go into this secret underground lab, or this city infested by zombies, or this other secret lab somewhere, and kill a bunch of zombies and monsters and barely make it out of alive, and then it'll be destroyed.
That's like the dialogue.
Yeah.
Like,
no, that's not the dialogue. That's not the dialogue. That's the basic plot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you're saying there's also
the dialogue is super cheesy though. Like,
is it as bad as good kind dialogue?
Yeah, I would say it's as bad as good kind dialogue.
Okay. So one of my suggestions for you, because I know I've posted these books. Have you tried Night Angel yet, or the Bulgaria book yet?
No, not yet. I will though.
Okay, because I know you wanted to talk about something, and I thought, yeah, you haven't read Night Angel yet, and I think you'd actually really like that series.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's another Brent Weeks series, but it's more grimdark than the other series that we've read.
Okay. So, and you haven't read Red Rising, right? So
I have not read Red Rising.
So as our backup series that we were gonna start talking about doing on my channel, would you rather do Red Rising first then, or Night Angel first?
I'll do Red Rising first.
Okay.
As Night Angel, it's shorter. It's only 3. It's 3 plus there's like a short story, but it's really good. I can't wait for Brett Weeks to make some more stuff. He only has this 2 series that I'm aware of. Yeah, I'm wondering if he's going to revisit this world again. I really love it if he revisited the Night Angel world again.
Cool. How many books are in the Night Angel series?
It's a trilogy.
Okay, cool.
3 books, but grimdark as fuck.
Awesome.
Yeah, and some really interesting plot twists. You know, Brett Weeks just seemed to be really good with those plot twists.
Yeah, he was really good in that. In the it was the Lightbringer series, right?
Yeah, the plot twists in those books are amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, you'll have similar amazing plot twists in this trilogy.
Sweet.
He's just really good at setting up those plot twists that you don't see coming.
Sweet.
All right. So, Oh yeah, I haven't decided what we're gonna do for next week. Uh,
Oh yeah. How
did you
long
want to
is?
try to get try to finish that Good Kind book? Do you think?
Yeah, I was just gonna say if I have enough time, I'll try to finish it. Do you know how long it is?
Shoot. How many hours? I think it's like 25 hours, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It takes me a lot longer to read it as a physical book, but yeah, I can try to read it before next weekend. Oh, Dusty got kicked out there. Uh-oh. Hopefully he'll be back in a minute. Because since he's streaming, I can't end it. Oh,
And
there you are.
When I looked that up, I accidentally closed it to look up the link. Did you hear what I said?
No.
It's 24 hours.
Okay.
So I don't know what that is in page length.
Yeah. Yeah, I said I'll try to read it by next weekend.
Okay, so we could do that. And tomorrow we're doing Batman, right? The Batman.
Yes, the Batman on my channel, Mindgasms. People should check that out.
Okay. So, all right. So, did you have any plugs that you wanted to plug away?
Yeah, other than checking out Dusty and I talking about Batman tomorrow, along with possibly Chris, but maybe not. Check out my last video I did about how perhaps Jordan Peterson is so emotional lately because he has low testosterone, because I thought of that since this former carnivore diet guy named Paul Saladino realized that he and other guys on the carnivore diet gradually developed extremely low to the level of being almost female testosterone levels, and when he added back carbs in the form of honey and fruit, his testosterone levels went way back up. So I just kind of made my funny half serious speculation about whether Jordan Peterson is so emotional lately because he has low testosterone.
So do you think he's growing boobs and all that too?
I don't know. That's hard to say. I did mention too that Dr. Robert Sapolsky said that high testosterone can manifest in different ways psychologically too. That some people have the genetic mutation that means that if they have higher testosterone, they're actually less emotional and filled with energy and stuff like that. But I think that's still for the most part, the stereotype is true of it causing just crazy emotions and stuff like that in people. But
you saw Peterson crying again recently, or?
Well, no, I just referenced. I just showed that one recently where he was commenting on Antifa and starts crying when he says that Antifa is revenge against God for the crime of being.
What the fuck?
Yeah, you didn't see that, man? Check it out. It's so funny.
I'll have to check your video. I was like, what the fuck is this guy talking about now?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's so funny. And yeah, check out also next week I'm going to do hopefully both, but at probably at least one of the ones I've been planning to do for a bit. I'm going to do that debate with our friend Chris, aka Tubin, about the Bill 67 that Jordan Peterson has been complaining about, that's been instituted in Ontario, which is some sort of racial sensitivity thing that is so far only a proposal and would be, if passed, only for Ontario schools. And Jordan Peterson is worried about it being this like whole country of Canada collapsing federal thing. And I also am skeptical of all of these philosophical terms that he demonizes all the time, like postmodernism and critical theory and CRT and all this kind of shit. But Chris agrees more with Jordan Peterson about how fucked up this idea of this bill is. So we're gonna talk / debate about that. And so we're gonna do that one and or the one with Parker and Shane, who are both Jordan Peterson fans, and we're gonna have a more charitable discussion because I wanted to talk with both of them about psychedelics as a religious experience, which a lot of people have talked about before, and Jordan Peterson himself has talked about before. And I want to talk about that in relation to consciousness and religion in general, and also criticize Shane for believing in Jordan Peterson's stupid theory that there are no such thing as atheists.
No. Well, I guess. I don't know how you say there's no such thing as an atheist, but
Yeah, that's really stupid. He just buys Jordan Peterson's fucking dumb argument that it's based on his own narrow definition of God, that basically everyone has a highest moral value and that is God. So because everyone has a highest moral value, that means that everyone believes in God because everyone has a highest moral value. Well,
it seems like some type of logical fallacy to me.
that's stupid. Not everyone defines God that way. Just because everyone can have your definition of God to apply that way, which literally requires it applying to everyone, doesn't mean that there are no atheists, because a lot of that, like pretty much every atheist is going to disagree with your definition of God, and plenty of other religious people will too. So that's just a stupid argument.
Right. Yeah, that sounds weird. I don't know why you would even want to assert that, but
yeah. But yeah, we'll get
sounds
into
weird.
we'll get into that in that podcast. And so yeah, check out all of those upcoming podcasts on my channel and all of the chats that Dusty and I have done on there.
All right, so I guess we could go ahead and wrap it up. Please join us next week when we're going to talk about the book 5 of the Sword of Truth series, and this tomorrow where we're going to talk about the Batman, and hopefully we can get Chris in there to talk about it too. I know Shizan's out because he doesn't have access to it, but being a relatively new movie locked to the HBO Max service, and other means if you're a bit more crafty, which I won't talk about here.
Yes.
But thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. And, comment down below. Let me know what you think about the Joker and whatever other topics that we've talked about today. And you have a great evening, guys.
Yep. Adios until next time, everyone.
All right. See ya.